Marisa.
Patrick.
I think our guest is here.
I see him on the screen.
Yeah. So before we get to Representative Walke, I just a little backstory. Back in I think it was 2016 or so. I think it was the fall. I was going on a date with a woman who would eventually be my daughter's mom. So yeah, that worked out great. So we were at the pump outside having a few drinks and enjoying. It was a beautiful day. And then all of a sudden I started noticing some political people I recognized. I think I saw David Glover. I saw a few other people all kind of, milling about. And I'm like, uh-oh, there's a political thing happening or whatever. And then David Glover recognizes me. And I love David Glover, but I'm like, well, let's be prepared to talk to David Glover for a bit. And so David comes over and all these people are talking. And then I see some dude pull up a chair. And he jumps on top of the chair and he starts giving one of those 20s, on the chair, oh, and then we're going to fight for this. We're going to fight for waving his hands in the air. And I'm looking up, I'm like, who's this guy? What's going on? And that's Collin Walke. He's running for, state. I'm like, oh, that's my district. And then I'm like, I'm not voting for him. I'm not going to vote for a guy who's going to interrupt my date here at the pump. Here I am trying to asshole. So anyway, and here we are now, 4 years later. He's my state representative and he is on the Lost Ogle Show. Welcome to the show, Mr. Walke. How are you doing?
Doing great. You can call me Colin. I'm not that important.
Okay. Woo. That's good. That was kind of respectful actually by me. Marisa said I need to be kinder to our guest after I just make fun of you before you come on. So there's a lot of stuff I want to talk to you about. The most important one though, is you are one of the, I guess you're the primary, you're one of the co-sponsors of a bill that just recently got passed by the Oklahoma House of Representatives. It's House Bill 1602. It's called the Oklahoma Computer Data Privacy Act, which is a good, fancy, official sounding title. And this, I think, has a chance to be a game changer for data privacy, especially at the state level. The federal government has shown it's incompetent to do anything about this, so the states are doing their things. It looks like Oklahoma is going to be somewhat of a leader in this field. Let's kind of give us the simpleton's guide to, what this bill means for us and what it does.
Yeah. So first of all, I appreciate you all having me on, especially to talk about data privacy, because it's an issue that a lot of people have come to understand recently in light of the Netflix documentary Social Dilemma, right? So a lot of people watch that and realize, okay. And in fact, my wife, I got onto this 2 years ago by reading a book called Zucked by Roger McNamee. He's a billionaire, hedge fund investor, had a hedge fund, in fact, with Bono. And I reached out to him and I said, I want to do something about this. So he and I and Representative West, who is the majority leader for the Republicans, have been working on this. And my wife thought I was wearing a tinfoil hat for the longest time until she watched the Social Dilemma. And here's the reality is that right now you don't know what information anyone has on you. One tech company alone has more than 1,500 data points on over 200 million Americans, right?
What do you mean by tech company? Well, I think a lot of people just think that's Google, but I mean, it's like everything, every app. I mean, they all share this stuff, right?
That's right. As a matter of fact, the average app tracks 6 points of data, or I'm sorry, there's actually 6 other trackers whenever you use any particular app. And so when I say a tech company, it really does involve everybody from data brokerage companies to your Roomba. Your Roomba is literally mapping the floor plan of your house, sending that data back to the mothership and being sold on the open market. So everybody knows where your furniture is and those sorts of things. And if you try and disable that device, you will not have the same functionality. And so it's everything that you do is being tracked. Larry Page, the CEO of Google, once said, we want to make your whole life searchable. Biometric markers, all of those. If you have a Sleep Number bed, they're tracking the voices in there. Your Vizio TV, I don't know if y'all have ever read your privacy policy, but it says in there, anything you say in front of this TV is collected. It's then bought and sold and processed. So everything... what's Amazon's little voice recording thing? Alexa, yeah. So Alexa. So here's what most people have been told. Well, it's not a real human being listening to what you're saying. That's absolutely false. As a matter of fact, the scary part is that they're not just listening to what you say, but a human is listening to the most unique parts of your conversation for quality control purposes. Because they have to make sure that the algorithm accurately picked up when Colin said the car is red. They're like, hey, those are pretty common nouns. Everyone knows that, that's not a big deal. But if Colin said, if I said Collin Walke is going to meet Patrick on the Lost Ogle, that's a lot of unique words that somebody has to go in and verify for quality control purposes that the algorithm picked up. So this is some scary, scary stuff.
So it's like somebody has to do, like Patrick wants to go steal money, but I actually said honey. They have to like get honey and money mixed up like that, so it can incriminate you if you hypothetically would commit a crime.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't like that at all.
Yeah. Like Pokemon Go. I don't know if y'all listened to the floor debate on it, but I love the Pokemon Go example. Do y'all remember Google Glass?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I remember those. Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody looked like a schmuck walking around tuned in the internet. Well, Google was like, since everybody looks like idiots wearing this stuff, what we're going to do is we're going to take our software and we're going to put it inside Pokemon Go for the sole and exclusive purposes of determining whether or not they can manipulate you. So they would say, Colin doesn't know Marisa. So let's see if Colin will go knock on Marisa's door by putting a reward in that place. I mean, behavioral manipulation to the nth degree is going on in our lives, and we are completely unaware of it.
Yeah, I guess that's what they're doing. It's not as much, whether it's your computer or TV stealing your data. It's then they have all these different data points that they can basically, give you one of 400 personality profiles, or they can figure out, these algorithms can almost predict and manipulate your behavior. It's not just that one thing, it's everything packaged together, right?
Yeah. And I think that's why you're seeing the divisions that you're seeing in our society, because if you want to learn something new, you have to get off the internet. Because if you're on the internet wanting to learn something new, the algorithms are already tailored to you. So you're not going to learn anything new.
Right. I want to talk about algorithms in a minute, because I think that's another big key. But going back to this and the data, from what I gathered in the House bill that you guys just passed, it's just as simple as they basically have to ask your permission now to do that. In the past, you had to kind of say, don't do it. They would do it automatically. Now they have to ask your permission. Is it just going to be, is it just going to be like the iTunes agreement? I mean, they ask your permission and everybody, because, you want to use your phone, you just click yes. Is Roomba just going to say, hey, here's some, just click this stuff? Is it just going to be that generic where people don't even know what they're agreeing to? Like, how do we prevent that? Is that in the bill?
So that's a great question. Yes, it is. And so the reason why that's a great question is because I was actually asked by one of the representatives on the floor during the debate, which was, well, don't we already do that when we agree to terms and conditions? No, that is not the same as opting in. And to your point about iTunes, for example, Apple in their next iPhone update, and on some of the apps they already have it, every single app in there requires opt-in before they can track you. And so you will go in and you will see that once you download the app, you can agree to terms and conditions all that you want. And then there will be a pop-up that says, can we track your data? Can we do this? That's opt-in. And that's what the industry hates, because as you pointed out, Patrick, everything right now is opt-out. Well, how do I know who to opt out of if I don't even know who has my information, right? So opt-in at least tells you the opportunity, just like the first time you might open Google Maps, and when it's installed on your phone, it says, can we track your location? Right. So that's opting in. That's clicking that button. And so that's what would be required before they could track you on a particular transaction.
But that's like for everything, like home appliances, whether it's on your phone, whether it's on your computer. How do we regulate that? How do we stay on top of it? Or how do we make sure they're doing that, I guess?
Well, so part of it will require some ingenuity from the companies themselves, right? So if you buy a Roomba, obviously there's no link to click on an actual product. But perhaps they require some sort of registration through their website or something along those lines. And at that time, they require the opt-in.
Okay. That seems like a good idea.
Every other state is opt-out. And as a matter of fact, there were 4 Republican senators from conservative states, Senator Toon, a senator from Tennessee, and I forget the other 2, who have filed federal legislation for opt-in as well. And the thing is tech and everybody hates opt-in because it's the only proven effective way to actually control your data.
My question about opt-in is, at what point because these apps have, a tremendous amount of power. Like, my phone is functionally just a phone if I don't have these apps, right? Like, what a dark age sort of concept. But if, opt-in is required, at what point are these apps able to say, like, well, if you don't opt in, you can't use our product? Is that going to be something that we see?
No, it won't. As a matter of fact, because my bill addresses that, and what it says is you can't condition the provision of services upon whether or not somebody accepts the collection of data or the sale of that data. And so, because that's exactly what would happen is somebody would say, well, you can use Google if you let us track us, if we let you track us.
Is there a risk they would just say, well, if you're in Oklahoma, you can't use it?
That's a theoretical possibility, but here's the reason why that's a practical impossibility is because we have 4 million people here in the state of Oklahoma. We have, tens of thousands of businesses and consumers who they want to target ads. It's like, what are you going to do? You're going to start advertising like on billboards again? I mean, everybody's going to continue to focus on the internet. And as a matter of fact, Google, for example, just announced the other day, like 2 or 3 days ago, that they are no longer going to track you across websites.
I actually have that story pulled up in a browser because I wanted to ask you about it.
Yeah.
To me, I think it's bullshit, actually. Like I don't trust Google ever since, once again, the company's original motto was "Don't be evil," and they changed that motto because they couldn't that should be a sign. Like Facebook's built on hacker way. That should be a sign that you may not want to trust Facebook. And when a company changes their logo or slogan from "Don't be evil," well, that should tell you something. I just think that's PR bullshit, what they're doing. From what I've read on it, yeah, they're going to stop doing cookies because cookies probably have a bad connotation now because a lot of people blame those for whatever. It slows down your browser. Oh, you've got to delete the cookies. It just has a bad connotation. And Google's now they're shifting to what I see. It is more of like the Facebook data type points where as opposed to targeting people who visit other websites, through all this data sharing that all these companies do, they already know everything about you.
Yeah,
they don't care what websites you browse anymore. If you want to target, men between the ages of 35 and 40 who like online poker and the color blue and whatever, you can still do that. That just kind of seemed like a bullshit ploy by Google to me. Was I right or was I wrong or what do you think?
Yeah, no. I mean, to your point, you're absolutely right. They're going to find a way to do this so long as they can. Absolutely, 110%. I don't disagree. In fact, let me give you my Verizon and AT&T examples. Okay. So back in like 2015, 2016, the FTC fined Verizon to the tune of tens of millions of dollars because they had said you can opt out of having your data tracked on our cell phones, and it was in their privacy policy. And guess what? You couldn't. There was literally no way to ever do it. And you know what other company did that? AT&T. And so to your point about lying, absolutely. AT&T this past week, in trying to kill our bill, lied and did everything they could to stop it. And I called them out on Twitter, and I've done everything I can because, you want to come to the table and actually talk about solutions to problems. And if you pretend that you care about our data like you say you do, pull up their privacy policies. You pull them up, it says you have a right to opt in. You have a right to deletion of your data. You have a right to all of these things because they have to comply with the GDPR. Why are you fighting me if you're telling me you're already doing this? Because we want the ability to lie to you. That's the reality. And I don't disagree with you, Patrick. I bet you Google's going to do everything they can to take advantage of that shit.
Who owns our data? Because that's, I think, another, when Andrew Yang, when he was running for president, I really liked a lot. I don't know if I didn't vote for him. I thought some of his stuff was kind of, utopian. I don't know how practical it was, but he did talk a lot about data and how essentially it's the new oil as far as how much it is. Because all these companies, they buy and sell and trade it. Made me wonder, well, who owns it? Like if I own my data, why am I not getting a royalty? Like, why am I not getting any of the money that all these companies are, basically using to manipulate me and get me maybe to buy stuff or influence my behavior? Is there going to be a future where that will ever happen, where you kind of own it and you get to make money? Just kind of like if you own land that has oil on it, you get a royalty on the land the oil companies take out. Should we get a royalty on the data that should, at least in my book, be our possession?
So you bring up 3 good points. The first one is I think we own our data. It's me. You're pulling off stuff from me. So that's why I've always found it bizarre, these people who oppose opt-in, because they're like, well, they ought to be able to collect your data until you opt out. I'm like, no, it's my data. I get to tell you when to use it. The second interesting point that you bring up there is during our interim study, a Republican representative actually asked the question of, well, can we start getting our portion of those dollars that they're selling? And so to the third point there, my bill allows companies to incentivize you to collect your data, right? So it doesn't necessarily say that you get a cut of the profits, but it does say that, we can give you some special things if you want us to collect your data. But I agree. I would love to see something like that because if the part of the problem is each data point has a different value. So more common information like your address or your name or something like that's like $1 or 50 cents. But they buy and sell lists of rape survivors. They buy and sell lists of alcoholics. And that type of personal information that's that detailed goes for like $200 a pop. It's $150 to $200 billion industry per year for the last decade, just buying and selling data. So I would love to see something like that.
I'm in the wrong business.
We all are. Yeah.
Marisa, what sort of data? Let's join the Borg. Let's start buying and selling data. I
think like when I talk about like that I make content on the internet, I think that there are some people in my family who think I am part of the Borg, just in that like they do not understand that general concept. But
Well, yeah, and I guess one reason why this is an interesting topic to me is like as an internet publisher, this stuff kind of relates to what we do, but we do ours and all we do use to serve our advertisements. We use a Google product called Ad Manager, but the Lost Ogle itself, we don't collect any data and do that. We actually don't even have programmatic ads. All of our ads are we sell directly to like our 5 advertisers. Like we don't have, data ads on there. I like to say that's because of my ethics, but it's also because we got kicked off the Google advertising program because of a derogatory post we wrote about Oral Roberts in 2009 that the Google robots like flagged us on. And once you get in Google robot hell, I mean, literally there's like no way, unless you have like an IT department to really jump on it, you're just screwed. I'm just in this never ending cycle of appeals. You can't talk to a human. Like I just can't talk on the hey, this is kind of a weird deal. Can you look at? No, it's just you have to go to a robot, and if the robot doesn't want you to talk to a human, you're screwed. So I mean, sometimes I wonder really how much money we've lost about that. But it's really made me hate these companies to a degree, and I see them as these huge, gigantic monopolies that they've commoditized advertising, right? You almost have to go through them for advertising, and 2, they serve as gatekeepers all the internet traffic. It's like they're a combination of like people say they put the newspaper industry out of business. They did that, but they also did that to like Yellow Pages in the phone books. They can they print those. They are the old Yellow Pages. And with that, there's all Marisa knows this from doing SEO. There's a whole industry just to manipulate search engine rankings. I mean, you have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars just to try to get on a page, and I mean, and that's probably not even enough to really do it correctly. And it just seems so disingenuous. It's become everything that it wasn't supposed to be. I don't think I have a question attached to this, but I'm just gonna complain to my state representative.
You're absolutely right. I mean, think about it. When we were all hopping onto AOL in 1997 or whatever it was, right? I mean, did you have to track my data? Did you ever at any particular? Do y'all even know how the data tracking started? This is my favorite story.
Can I blame Zuckerberg? But no, I'm sure it's beyond.
It's actually, yeah. So data analytics really kicked off on the collection of data and the use of that in 2002 as a result of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And these Google engineers were sitting around going, hey, you know what? When it shows up on the East Coast at 9 o'clock, we get all these Google searches. When it shows up on the, in Central Time, we get all these same Google searches. And then so we can predict what people are going to search based off of what TV show is on and where they are in the time zone. So we know not just what they're going to search, but when they're actually going to search it too. Yeah. And so that's what really inspired this whole movement. And I'm like, you devious assholes, y'all never had to do this. You could run the internet without data collection 110%. You chose not to because you're greedy. Well, fine. I'm taking my privacy back, and I hope all of the 3.9 million Oklahomans as well.
Yeah. Take back our privacy. Yeah, I like this movement. Like we should have a rally, like we'll coordinate it on Facebook, right? That's the great irony of this. Like, I always can't complain too much about, Google and Facebook, because if there wasn't a Google and Facebook, we wouldn't be now. I want to be doing with algorithms. And do you ever see in the future, will there be algorithm reform? Because we talk about owning our own data. Why can't I choose what I want to see when I open up a social media application? Why can't I tailor the algorithm to fit what I want as opposed to what Facebook wants? And maybe that kind of hedges into like, are these utilities? Like they're such a way of life. Shouldn't I have control over that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. But, you mentioned earlier Andrew Yang living in a utopia. And I think that that's kind of a utopic question. While I agree with you in theory, the problem is that these companies just have a profit motive, period. There needs to be algorithm reform, but the only area where we're really seeing that discussion is when it comes to facial recognition, because they are being proven, especially with regard to BIPOC and other minority groups, that they are not as effective. They're radically incorrect and inaccurate at facial recognition with AI. And so there needs to be reform, because if there's that much variance within just AI for facial recognition, you got to imagine how much variance there is sitting out there for every other algorithm. And not only that, but it hurts us because it puts us into these rabbit holes that only we go down and the people that we see go down. If you go to my Facebook page, take a look at my political page. And I try and stay off Facebook as often as I can. But get on there and look at every time I use the word data privacy, I get like 5 likes. That's it. Their own algorithms tone down when you use those keywords. Because we're not showing that to anybody.
I hate their algorithms so much. Once again, can't complain. They were great in the big. There was like a kind of an internet page view gold rush from about 2011 to about 2015, up until the time when Trump got elected. They were like, "Oh fuck, what have we done?" And that's when, like, we're on their blacklist. Our traffic's gone down significantly over the past couple of years because they consider us kind of a controversial news source, and they don't want people to go to those websites anymore. So all that traffic and kind of how they gave to us, basically, they've now taken away with their algorithm. And I've had to adjust, and now I'm kind of like, well, fuck Facebook. We're just going to kind of launch a membership program, and as opposed to reaching 20 to 30,000 people a day, like we did, how many years ago, I'd rather reach 1,000 people a day that are maybe content paying for the product. I don't know. You just kind of have to adjust. I mean, that's part of business, but it just irritates me that they have that so much unchecked power. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, I was going to ask you, just because you said it, since you're a controversial news source, do you consider yourself a news source?
I kind of look at it more as an art project.
No.
It's whatever you want it to be. I'm saying, some people think we're like, the hard hitting. We only cover the news. Other people don't. Other people think we're like the Onion. Right. Some people think we're some people think we're the devil. So, it's all over the map. We cover news, but whenever you read that news, remember that you're on a website called the Lost Ogle. And that, at least in my, Lewis is a little different than me. Haley's different. Marissa's different. But I always write in kind of an alter ego satirical voice. But then when people send me news, what am I supposed to do? Give it to Channel 4? If somebody sends me a news tip, okay, I'm going to write it, but we're going to do it in our own way. I'm not going to follow the traditional bounds of journalism. That's why people like to read it. Right. We're not, we weren't indoctrinated at, Missouri or whatever, their journalism school. And we don't follow their rules. So that's my long-winded answer to your question. You kind of come across as a confrontational guy, to be honest. Doing a little pivot here, nothing about data privacy, but somebody emailed me today and they're like, "Did you hear there was almost a fight on the Oklahoma House floor?" And I'm like, "Oh, what do you mean there was almost a fight?" And then, I asked around and somebody said, Collin Walke got in an argument with like Kevin Wallace and asked him to go fight outside or something like that. Is that true? Like a breakdown. I saw one of the Fox channels has already covered it, but let me know what happened here. Yeah, this is our news element. This is the news part, I guess.
So I want to be clear for a whole host of reasons, not just for my own personal growth as a human being, but I reacted inappropriately on the House floor. But it was bad, as you all know. The legislature, especially during deadline week, likes to throw out as many crazy bills as they possibly can. And we were late into the evening. That evening, we stayed until 1 a.m. in the Capitol. And this was probably, 6 o'clock at night. And J.J. Humphrey was up, and it was an anti-doxing bill, right? Said if you post a picture of a cop online, you can be arrested, those sorts of things. And Regina and J.J. had gotten into it back and forth, and it kind of got my blood boiling a little bit. And then he and Forrest Bennett got into it. And it was at that stage that I had just lost it. And I stood up and
He got into it with Forrest Bennett?
Yeah.
He's like the nicest guy on the planet. How do you get into it with him?
Because you got to remember, really conservative individual, really liberal individual. Okay. So you can see that. And so I had started out really respectful because I try and practice mindfulness and meditation, and I just lost it. And I said, "Mr. Speaker, would you please remind the member to not impugn my side of the aisle Or if he wants to go outside and settle this like a man, I'm more than happy to. And, he and I talked about it
That's
afterwards.
awesome.
We worked it out. We're square. But, it's one of those things where my natural instinct is to respond like that. And that I think we do need to be examples, especially when we're talking about politics today, to not be that way. And so that's why, listen, I get up every morning, I do jujitsu. I love MMA. But there's a time and a place for that. And in the political world, it's not. There are some situations in which maybe it's the case, but most of the time it's not. And it happens.
Most of the fights with lawmakers usually happen like at a bar. I remember we covered the one at a Barrel. Remember the Barrel, that awful bar? And
Oh, man.
Two Republican lawmakers got in a fight over like a legislative aid or something like that. Typical. This was kind of like right before all that was kind of pre-Me Too a little bit. I think it was, I don't know if Dan Kirby was involved.
It was Kirby. It was Kirby.
Yeah.
2016. Yeah.
Yeah. When all that stuff was happening. So I don't know. I sometimes wish our political system was a little more kind of like at the House of Commons, where sometimes stuff like that does happen, because it can just be maddening to watch what takes place. And I know those emotions that they can boil over, but you don't have cauliflower ear, do you? That's a new term. I know. Okay.
I've been trying to get it for years. I don't know.
I was about to say, because I don't that OU video, the fight that happened, I was like, I would probably bet on you. Like, you'll always bet on the jiu-jitsu guy in situations like that. So, okay. So nothing happened. But you just got pissed off and was like, let's take it outside, and nothing happened. And then did you guys go like hang out or play Sega? Like, was it in Swingers when they would play NHL like 93 after the fight?
No.
Like, you do anything like that or?
No, but he and I, we went back and we talked about it, and we both agreed to lay down arms and we apologize to each other, respect each other. And that was really the deal is that we all just needed to be more respectful at that time and less jabbing at one another, because that was elevating tensions. Yeah.
On the top, we're talking about data. We're talking about online, social media companies and all that. There's one bill, I think it's on the Senate side of the chamber. I think it's Senate Bill 383. And it's one that will prohibit social media, like companies with over 50 million users or whatever, from censoring political and religious speech. My opinion is, one, that's not really an issue. I don't really see a lot of companies just censoring that type of stuff. Two, if they want to, they can censor it, because guess what? They own the company. They own the platform. That just doesn't give you, you can say whatever you want anywhere and still have free speech rights. But if a private or publicly held company doesn't want you to say whatever they want on their platform, that's their right. What are your thoughts on that bill? Is it going to make it to the House? Is this going to be another unconstitutional bill that gets struck down by the courts?
So you bring up a lot of great points there. So first of all, bad news for Senator Standridge. You're already being censored, right? Because the algorithms already say who's going to see what, right? So it's already happening. That being said, that's one of the things that I get so aggravated about when I listen to like a Joe Rogan podcast, and he's like, it's all about freedom of speech. Where do you draw the line? I'm like, you draw the line at facts and science and, inciting riots. And if somebody's out there using your platform to incite hate speech, riots, spreading disinformation. Yeah, if you're saying that the earth is flat, guess what? You get kicked off. Or maybe you go to outer space and we drop you out. I don't know. But the point is that there are facts and reality. And as a private business, they don't have to comply with free speech. And so that's an aggravating argument. There is no free speech for businesses. They can censor you all day long. So, and to the question about whether or not it's constitutional, I bet it's unconstitutional. I bet it passes the House, but I do bet it is unconstitutional.
Yeah, that's such a weird. I kind of go back and forth on that topic at times. Like even the Trump thing, when he got banned from Twitter, I didn't have a problem with him being banned, but I kind of had a problem. I don't know, maybe with the timing of it. If they banned him, they should have done it.
Yeah,
a long time ago.
Yeah, but then once you wait till that point, you're not. It's not helping. Like would anything be different? I don't know. It kind of that. But it's such a hard issue to be consistent on, because what's the difference between lies and distorting political rhetoric? It's such a, is it Sacha Baron Cohen? He has a great speech where he kind of talks about how social media is basically propaganda outlets now. And guilty. Yeah, I'm pretty good at using my, social media outlet and my website as a kind of a whatever propaganda. I think that's a fair term to use for everyone that uses it. But I mean, propaganda is built on lies and distortion. So how do we regulate the lies and like, how do we determine really what's a lie? I don't know. I'm not smart enough to figure that out.
Well, but you are. I mean, if I were to sit here and I were to say, Patrick, is the Earth flat? You'd go no, right? So if you're a flat earther posting something on YouTube, guess what? It's not on there anymore, right? I mean, there are certain. I don't disagree that there are areas, a ton of gray areas. I don't disagree with that at all, one bit. But I do think that there's some pretty black and white stuff that ought not to be still sifting around in the free market of ideas, because the free market of ideas doesn't work because most people don't use critical thinking on those ideas in the first place, which is why people can, run for office and say, I'm X, Y, and Z when they're really A, B, and C. Or they say it about me. I mean, they say it about anybody. And it's like, well, it's just, it's politics. People can lie. And I think that's wrong.
Marissa's a big fan of lying, actually. So, like, I'm like, Marisa, did you have fun on the podcast today? And Marissa's like, oh yeah, it was a lot of fun, Patrick. Thanks for having me on again and give me all this airtime.
Let me ask a question real quick about lies. Not to bring down this conversation to like kind of a sad level, but it almost feels like maybe now is too late to retool the algorithm to like correct some of the mistakes the tech companies have made, just in that there are so many friends I have who like call me crying because they functionally lost their parents to QAnon bullshit. Like they can no longer have a conversation. Their parents are going broke because they get those text messages like donate $5 now to libertyeagle.gun or whatever bullshit website it is, It just feels like there has been so much wrong with the algorithm for so long, from like, it creating a kind of white supremacist and nationalist rhetoric and, like really enabling these groups, and then also QAnon. And it just like, can we get back to a place where like, truth is something that even if we don't like it, like we accept it, or, are we too far gone?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question. Obviously, I don't have a crystal ball, and neither do you. I mean, what I would suggest, my perspective on that would be, is a few years ago, there was an op-ed in the New York Times, and I forgot who wrote it, but it basically said that, the number one indicator of whether or not you're in poverty is if you smoke. Okay, so if you smoke, the odds are you are impoverished. And the argument that this person was making is in the future, social media is going to be that equivalent. In other words, only people who do not have access to other resources are going to continue to be on these types of platforms, because other people are going to wake up and realize this is not good for my mental health. It's not good for my child's mental health. That's why, billionaires like Bill Gates don't let their family members run around on Facebook all day long because they understand the effects that this has. I mean, I don't know if you know this, your phone itself, have you ever tried to turn it to grayscale? Probably not. You have, okay. So
yeah, I watch videos on minimalism, and I like my phone is always on do not disturb because I work on the internet, so I know it's crap.
Yeah. Well, so you may know this. Most people don't. I didn't know this. To do it, it's not like there's a setting in there that says grayscale. Like you have to go to like these weird buttons in your settings to fix it. And then here's the real trick.
What's grayscale?
Huh?
What is
like
grayscale?
Black and white, basically.
I thought it was like some code for like removing shit from your phone you don't want or something. Okay, my bad. Yeah. I'm a graphic designer, by the way. So yeah, thanks.
Even if you click the right buttons in your settings, to actually make it go to grayscale, you have to click it 3 times on the side. So unless you Google, how do I turn it to grayscale? You don't know to click the button 3 times on the side to make that happen. And here's why. Because the brightness of the colors themselves, the reason why they want those clear, crisp colors is because it's addictive. Your phone itself is addictive, and the colors make it more addictive and creates more dopamine rushes. So if you turn your phone to grayscale or black and white, it's less addictive. So tech is not good. And these people who are becoming addicted to it, it is going to be the next crisis. And whether or not we're too far gone to save ourselves from the lies, I do think we have the opportunity to save ourselves from that issue. There's going to certainly be a lot of pain between now and then, but I think we're all going to wake up one day, just like we woke up in Oklahoma and realized, an unregulated oil and gas industry isn't good for anybody.
Well, I think some of us have woken up to that.
Yeah.
A lot of people you work with, I don't think have.
Even they did, because they started saying we're going to do spacing units between wells. I mean, like, they started thinking, and I think the same thing is going to happen here. You got to remember, this is a 20-year-old technology, which sounds like a long time, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not.
See, not to once again become like an intellectual dark web ripoff podcast here. I think it actually goes back farther. It's social media, the little screens we're looking at. I grew up looking at a bigger screen, right? We all did, and I think a lot of the problems, and I'm a big believer in the progress trap that they talk about, but I do think a lot of the problems kind of just result on the commercialization and capitalization of mass media, and as humans being visual, sensory creatures, and having everything now in front of us from a screen dating back, to the, when movies, TV came out, and social media is just the next evolution of that. And the little phones we have now, just wait till we have augmented reality, right? Wait till we're all walking around in a holodeck. That's when things, we think it's bad now. What's it going to be like then? But then again, if all that's going on, then will it be bad? I don't know. Once again, not to get all, check this out, subscribe to Lex Clips or whatever. What's this? We're gonna, what's that podcast, that Lex? Do you know what I'm talking about? Is that come up on your algorithm?
Are you talking about Lex Friedman?
Yeah, that guy or whatever.
Yeah.
Like when he has people, I'll sometimes watch that, and it just started appearing on my algorithm. I never said, I want to watch this guy. It just started appearing, and then before I know it, I'm like, why am I watching this? Why do I care? But then I'm like, well, it's kind of interesting. Maybe these algorithms, I don't know. Maybe they're a good thing. I don't know.
Well, I mean,
I'm talking myself into circles now. I should probably just go get on YouTube and let my brain fry or something.
Well, Lex Friedman's a great example, right? I mean, like, I really do enjoy a lot of his shows. I mean, Artificial Intelligence is a great podcast. And it's got, physicists on there. It's great. I love it. But to that point, what happens whenever you get off? It's going to suggest what you see next, and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and watch that. That's why if you were to watch a diet video, the next video is going to be more extreme, and the next one's going to be more extreme until you get to a thinspo video, and it's just,
YouTube should have the guide. Just like a guide that kind of scrolls through, and you can be like, and then you have to wait for it to get to another channel. There'll be a long guide, but maybe just go the basic cable route or something. I don't know. Oh, geez, man, God, I feel like I've learned a lot. Have we learned, like, data's bad, algorithms suck, and Oklahoma is actually, this is kind of neat because of you. And once again, this is kind of what we would call a bipartisan issue here in the state. Yeah, both Republicans and Democrats, we've found ways to hate this data collection and manipulation of our minds. And very rarely do we get to say Oklahoma is being a trendsetter in something, but this does appear to be an area where we get to be a trendsetter. So thanks for doing that.
We'd be the third state to institute comprehensive data privacy, but we'd be the first state with opt-in. And right now, that's my biggest battle up at the Capitol between AT&T and their shenanigans. And in fact, a nonprofit organization called the Nonprofit Alliance out of Washington, D.C. sent out this little shitty letter today that said, Collin Walke is going to ruin all of your ability to go and fundraise for your nonprofit. And here's some proof. There's the UK Cancer Research Institute, and they lost all of this money because of opt-in under the GDPR. Yeah, that's the same research institute, Cancer Research Institute, that was selling personal information to lottery companies. So, if you're upset about getting shut down because you're a research institute selling information to a lottery company, I ain't got no sympathy for you.
Yeah, neither do I. Just start a GoFundMe. That's what everyone else does now, right?
Right.
If people want, what's the name of I'm impressed that you were working with the Facebook guy who mentored Zuckerberg, because I've watched it. I've watched a lot of interviews with him over the years, and he seems like a smart, reasonable guy, and he jumped the Facebook ships. Yeah. So it's cool. I think it's cool that you reached out to him, that he's had a hand in all this. So
I think it was cool that he reached back out, right? I mean, because I'm this guy from Oklahoma, right? He's a California, Silicon Valley guy. Like, who cares about Oklahoma? And when he reached back out to me, and he has been so helpful to Representative West and myself, it is absurd how much he has been helpful, and I'm truly appreciative of that. He's been amazing to work with.
One final question. I know it's, I don't know if it's a work night at the Capitol. You have to read through bills and do official stuff like that, right? No, you're done.
No, okay. It just ended.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, never mind. But next time there's like a bad ice storm, since you're my state representative, does that mean you're going to come over and help me, like, pick up stuff out of the yard, be a good helper type guy, and all that type of stuff?
So I'll tell you what, you may have seen on some of the tweets, people complimenting my wife. She does the outdoor work at our house. I do all the cooking and cleaning indoors. So I'll send her over to your house next time the ice storm happens.
Okay. And she's like a pastor, correct?
She is at Mayflower Congregational Church.
Okay.
Yes.
The liberal church. Okay.
Yeah,
that's a church for all my liberal, like, yeah, you go to church. Oh, we go to Mayflower. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I don't know. I'm not, it's kind of Unitarian. It's like all the liberal people. It's either they go to the Unitarian church or the Mayflower church.
Yeah.
When I left the district for a little bit, that's where I would have to go vote. But now I'm back. Now I'm back in your district. No more voting for months. I'm done with month to Milwaukee voting. If people want to hit you up, how do they find you on the socials?
Yeah, so I'm not very active on social media, I'll be honest, because I'm so data privacy. I hate these guys. I'm on there because it serves a purpose, but basically Facebook, Walking for 87. You can probably just search my name. Same thing on Twitter, Walking for 87. I'm not even on Instagram. My nonprofit's on Instagram, Awake OKC, if you're interested in meditation, but I'm not on Instagram.
Okay, well, never mind then. Or you can email, or you can just, I emailed you, right? I just sent it.
Yeah, no, if you want to email me, Collin.walke@okhouse.gov. Yep.
Well, there you go. Thanks again for coming on, and I guess enjoy the day off tomorrow.
Thank you guys. And if you
work out hard,
or hey, just give me a heads up the next time you're going to make fun of me on the Lost Ogle. That's all I care.
I'll send you a courtesy note.
He'll let you know like 2 minutes before he is published.
Yeah. I'm like, by the way, I'm about to publish this. Turn off your mentions, and you're like, it's cool. I'm off there now.
If y'all ever need anything seriously, let me know.
All right, we'll do, man. We appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.